Hey everybody, my name is Noah Kellman. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking some more about every single solo jazz piano technique that I know. And today's technique is going to be about left-hand comping. So this used to be such a mystery to me. How do we actually get good comping in the left hand while we're improvising, but there's no one there to support us, no bass player, no drummer? I used to really struggle with this. Obviously one option is playing stride piano, which I covered in another video. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. There's a lot more interesting stuff we can do. Bill Evans really did some really fantastic left-hand comping, and of course, so many pianists have done different left-hand concepts. So today I'm going to show you some of my favorite ways of comping for yourself by yourself. All right, so let's take a look at these solo piano left-hand comping techniques. So one thing it took me a long time to realize is you actually do have a lot of freedom here. But one thing you have to remember to do, or at least in my opinion is a good thing to do, is to give the listener kind of anchor points of the roots of the chords. So what I mean by that is essentially, hit a bass note every once in a while. Hit chords that have roots in them, or they can be shells to kind of remind the listener of where you are in the chord changes. So I was just taking the chord changes to all the things you are here, messing around. But, we can actually start just by comping some different rhythms using just plain shells, right? So 1 and 7 of each chord. So this is literally just step one, actually getting comfortable with just straight up comping rhythms. So I have other videos that are about left-hand comping rhythms and how to practice those, but what we want to do is essentially just be able to make it interesting just by improvising and playing shells in our left hand. That is solo piano comping 101 right there. So you'll notice I'm actually not just playing everything on beat 1. Right? That sounds a bit basic, which is fine, but we want to spice things up. So you might have noticed that there I was actually kind of finding some accented notes in my lines itself in the right hand and actually hitting those with the left hand chords. So essentially what I'm doing is actually letting the left hand follow the rhythm of my right hand. That's something that Bill Evans would actually do a lot. Now, alternatively, we can practice doing the opposite, which is doing a rhythmic pattern in the left hand and letting the right hand run. So that's a really, really great thing to practice, right? Different patterns in the left hand, different rhythms in the left hand while being able to maintain improvisation in the right hand. By the way, I'm kind of playing constant lines in my right hand right now, but realistically, you want to be a little bit more thoughtful about developing your solo, so you don't have to practice this with like constant lines. I kind of like doing this continuous linear scale in the right hand as a way of, just kind of making sure that I can go full on out with my right hand while keeping the brain split and doing different things in my left hand. But in some ways, it's also maybe even trickier to actually just play some simple melodies in the right hand and develop. So don't just try to play lines constantly. Also think about development, even though I'm not being the best, demonstrator of that right now. So, of course, we don't want to just stick to shell voicings. We want to branch off a bit. So another great thing I like to do is actually use tenths, right? So, and what I'll do is I'll put the 1 in the pinky, and then I'll put the flat 7 and the flat 3 in the index and the thumb, right? So that's a nice way to kind of jump from a bass note to a chord really easily. So that's a nice little, little pattern you can use, right? Again, 1, 7, and 3. And that's really, really nice. Now, next step would be actually getting away from just these basic kind of intervals and hitting a bass note in your left hand and then comping a chord in your right hand. So again, if we give the listener a frame of reference, being the bass note, So I'm kind of alternating between bass note, chord, chord, bass note, chord, chord, bass note, chord, chord, bass note, right? And so that's a really great pattern. Again, bass note, chord, chord, bass note, chord, chord, bass note. I think you get it. So if you can practice that pattern, you can start to squeeze in some really nice left-hand voicings. Super quick aside, if you're enjoying this video or learning anything useful here, I would really appreciate it if you just give that like button a click. And also just a quick note, these videos are actually all sponsored by the courses and PDFs that are found in my store. You can check out jazzpianoconcepts.com/store. I really appreciate every single sale because that is exactly what goes towards helping me have time to continue making all these videos. Thank you so much for all of your support. I really appreciate you guys. So when we actually practice all those techniques separately, we can start to kind of mix them up as we go. And suddenly our left hand starts to sound like very free. You know, it starts to sound like a really fantastic comper just accompanying us while our right hand goes off and improvises. So this is a really key set of techniques to be able to utilize when you're playing solo piano. For me, it honestly took me a really long time to figure this out and just break it down into these simple building blocks, which maybe to you seems silly, but you know, for me, I just thought this would be really useful for you to just have it be clear and concise like this. Now, a couple other super quick tips here. You might have noticed a couple patterns that I was using just to make this sound a little bit better or have better voice leading. So first of all, when you're doing a 2-5 in the shell, you can just do this, right? You can just move that left-hand thumb down, and essentially you can kind of mimic the sound of going from 2 minor to 5 like that and land on 1. You can do a very similar thing with the tenths, right? You can do just like that. So this flat 7 of F becomes the 3 of B flat, so you can kind of do. That's a nice little pattern. And also, don't be afraid to sometimes just go on tangents where you go longer without playing a bass note. I do think that that's okay, especially if you use nice voicings in the left hand. Right, so eventually you want to throw those in like I did, but I'm not saying you have to every single time play a chord, and then a bass note, right? So you can start to get more and more free as these techniques become more comfortable for you. All right, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that you found these techniques interesting. I've still got more coming in the Every Solo Piano Technique You Will Ever Need to Know series, so be sure to stay tuned. Again, if you got something out of this video, really appreciate you clicking the thumbs up. And if you're looking for some personal guidance, feel free to click the link in the description of this video and set up a totally free Zoom call. All right, looking forward to chatting with you or just seeing you in the next video, or maybe even chatting with you in the free Discord community, which you can also sign up for by clicking the link in the description. All right, thanks so much everybody, and I will see you next time.